de foto. Estos son armamentos, cuando el tiempo de la revolución aquí, esos son armamentos rusos. ¿Quiere que pare? Son armamentos de enero de 1959. ¿Lo ves? Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, ¿no ves? Aviones caídos cuando la guerra.
Welcome to Old Havana, or La Habana Vieja, the historic heart of Cuba's capital and one of the most captivating urban treasures in the Caribbean. Declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1982, Old Havana is a place where time seems to slow down. Every cobblestone street, colorful façade, and colonial balcony tells a story that stretches back centuries. Old Havana was founded by the Spanish in 1519, originally as a trading port. Due to its strategic location along the Gulf of Mexico, Havana quickly became a major hub for ships traveling between the New World and Spain. The city grew rapidly, protected by massive stone fortresses like Castillo de la Real Fuerza, El Morro, and La Cabaña, which still stand today as proud symbols of Havana's military and maritime past. As the centuries passed, Havana blossomed into a vibrant colonial capital, full of opulent architecture, grand cathedrals, and stately plazas. By the 18th and 19th centuries, it was known as the Paris of the Caribbean, attracting wealthy merchants, artists, writers, and explorers. Walking through Old Havana is like stepping into a living painting. The architecture is a blend of Spanish colonial, neoclassical, and Baroque styles, marked by aged balconies, pastel colors, and ornately carved stone. Many of the buildings have been beautifully restored, while others wear their weathered beauty with pride. The district is organized around four main plazas. Plaza de Armas, the oldest square, surrounded by lush gardens and historic buildings like the Palacio de los Capitanes Generales. Plaza Vieja, a lively square filled with cafes, art galleries, and stunningly restored mansions. Plaza de San Francisco, located near the port, home to the impressive Línea del Comercio building. Plaza de la Catedral, dominated by the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, a Baroque masterpiece and one of Havana's most iconic landmarks. Old Havana is more than just a collection of beautiful buildings, it's alive with culture. Street musicians fill the air with the sounds of son cubano, salsa, and rumba. Artists display their work on sidewalks, and the scent of strong Cuban coffee drifts from cafes and home kitchens. This is a neighborhood where you can see classic American cars from the 1950s cruising by colonial churches, where domino games are played on street corners, and where locals and tourists alike come together to enjoy the rhythm of Cuban life. Don't miss iconic spots like La Bodeguita del Medio, a favorite haunt of Ernest Hemingway, El Floridita, home of the daiquiri and another Hemingway favorite. Museo de la Revolución, housed in the former presidential palace, showcasing Cuba's revolutionary past. Despite the challenges of time and politics, Old Havana remains one of the most enchanting destinations in Latin America. Thanks to ongoing restoration efforts led by the Office of the City Historian, many buildings have been preserved or rebuilt, maintaining the magic that defines Havana's soul. Whether you're exploring hidden courtyards, marveling at centuries-old churches, or simply people watching in a shaded plaza, Old Havana offers an experience that is both unforgettable and deeply moving. Wear comfortable shoes, bring your curiosity, and take your time. The best way to discover Old Havana is by wandering slowly, listening to the sounds, soaking in the sights, and embracing the city's timeless rhythm. Old Havana is not just a place, it's a feeling, a story, and a celebration of life, art, and resilience.